Well, with the seat of Brisbane decided today, it looks like we've finally arrived at a result, and as we've all been anticipating, nobody has an outright majority. The coalition should have 73 votes on the floor of the House of Representatives if it can rely on the support of West Australian National Tony Crook. Labor also has 73 votes with the avowed support of the new Greens Member of Parliament, Adam Brand. That now clears the way for negotiations to start on Monday, with the 4 independents sitting in the lower house. To discuss the complications of creating a minority federal government, we're joined tonight by the Coalition's Andrew Robb. He's in our Melbourne studio, and with me in Sydney is Labor's Anthony Albanese. Welcome to both of you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, yes.
I want to clarify, first of all, the situation with Tony Crook, the West Australian Nationals MP, who's reportedly said he's going to sit on the crossbenches. Andrew Robb, is the Coalition confident of relying on him as one of your 73 seats?
Well, Tony, firstly, I think there's some prospect that he will sit in the National Party room. But even if he doesn't, he is vehemently opposed to the mining tax. So I would assume that not only with that, but with where he comes from and all the rest, that we will certainly respect what he has to say. But there's a lot of people in our party room that have got independent views, and we're quite confident that he will see that he best serves his constituency by being part of the Coalition team.
Well, has the Coalition leadership team had a discussion with him about this? Because Julia Gillard said today that Mr Crook told her that he shouldn't be considered a member of the Coalition.
Look, it's more, we have been talking with him, some members have been, and we're not taking anything for granted, obviously. He is a new Member of Parliament, and he's put certain propositions that he would like to see supported. But we feel that he will decide that he best serves his membership and his constituency by being a part of an alliance or part of directly of the coalition government.
Mr Albanese, has Labor had discussions with Mr Crook, and where do you see his position?
Well, what's important is what he says. And what he says is that he's not a member of the Coalition. Indeed, he defeated the Coalition candidate, Wilson Tuckey, in the electorate of O'Connor. So he's made his position very clear. The Prime Minister has obviously had at least a discussion with him. And certainly in terms of Mr Crook's views on regional infrastructure, are much more in line with the position that Labor has not only taken in our first term of office, but with commitments that we made during the election campaign regarding a regional infrastructure fund would fit very much with the sort of views that Mr Crook has been talking about.
Nonetheless, he did win that seat as a national... Sorry, go on, Mr Robb.
Well, look, the fact of the matter is that he is violently opposed to the mining tax, and it's the mining tax that would provide what is still a fairly small amount of money for the infrastructure program that Anthony just mentioned. But he's violently opposed to the mining tax. As I understand it, he is greatly concerned about the massive debt that Labor has racked up. He's very concerned about the reckless spending that's occurred, especially in most of it in many city areas under Labor. So, I would have thought that he will have a strong disposition. Of course, it's what his preference is, but in the end, I think that he'll have a big attraction to what we offer. We're the only one, I think, which offers a stable and competent government, and I would expect Tony Crook to see that, and would be very hopeful that he will be with us on all the major decisions.
Except with due respect to Mr Robb, what I was talking about wasn't just the Regional Infrastructure Fund, it's our record. Our nation-building program has $22 billion allocated to regional Australia in terms of infrastructure development. We've had programs such as the increased funding we've put into the Australian Rail Track Corporation on the East-West line, of particular benefit to Kalgoorlie. We have a number of road projects also in that electorate, and of course on grain rail we've been working with the Western Australian government to resolve issues which are of great benefit to South Western Australia. So we've got a good record. We also have a plan to move that forward. And what really, when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter what I say or what Mr Robb says. It's what he says. And he says he is not a part of the coalition.
Let me ask you, he was elected, you know, despite everything that we say, as a Nationals MP.
As a WA Nationals MP.
As a WA Nationals MP. So taking that at face value, that gives Labor 72 seats in its own right and the Coalition 73. Why should the other independents support Labor to form government if the other side has more seats?
Well, it of course can't be taken at face value, Lee. It's 72 each, and there are 6 others. Of those, we know that the Greens member, Adam Bandt, will support Julia Gillard becoming Prime Minister because he has said so. That is the only definite allocation that you can make. Of the others, there's the 3 independents who are cooperating, the existing returning independents, and of course we have Andrew Wilkie from Tasmania, and it remains unclear whether indeed today his comments are he's not sure he'll support either side. He might choose to stay independent from the process. So I don't think things are clear at this stage. What is clear is that both the Labor Party and the Coalition can have 72 in their party rooms, and then there are 6 others.
Andrew Robb, can I ask you, Mr Robb, if it is the Coalition strategy, as some are suggesting, to return to the polls?
No, that's certainly not correct at all. The fact of the matter is that there is an urgency about addressing the quite vulnerable state that this economy is in. If there is a double-dip recession in the next 18 months, 2 years, there is an urgency about restoring the resilience that was inherited by the Rudd-Gillard government. And to do that, you need a stable and competent government. Now, with the deep division on the other side of politics, you know, with the power struggles that are going to occur, with the paybacks, and with the resentment it's clearly running very heavily through the Labor Party, there's going to be 2 or 3 years of great instability. In fact, the betting markets have Bill Shorten at $2.70 compared with Julia Gillard at $4.10 to lead the Labor Party to the next election. So it just underscores, in a way, that great instability. Now, I'll give
Anthony Albanese. Sorry to cut. I'll give Anthony Albanese a chance to respond to that in a second. But before I do, I just want to ask you one point. You raised stability there. Tony Abbott's been saying this week that the Treasury can't be trusted, although the Coalition has changed its mind on providing its costings to Treasury. If you're saying that Treasury can't be trusted, how can voters expect a stable coalition government if apparently you don't even trust the Treasury?
Well, it's not a proper interpretation of what Tony Abbott has said, and in fact I have said. The fact of the matter is that there was a process with the Charter of Budget Honesty where we were presenting, we'd already presented 52 policies, and then there was a leak, a major leak, which was a criminal offence which sought to give significant advantage to the Labor Party, which meant there was someone either in Treasury, and we don't know that, or within the Treasurer's office who was prepared to commit a criminal offence. So the process which involved in part Treasury had become corrupted, and we were not going to continue to be part of that process until the person or persons who had leaked that material had been identified, because if we did, how could we be confident that our policies would have been costed in a proper fashion, and we wouldn't have had some tampering? Now, that is a very important...
Let me bring in Anthony Albanese and ask him to respond to that and to the earlier answer.
Well, that's just embarrassing, Lee, frankly. I mean, Mr Robb puts forward a range of issues that they weren't going to put forward, the costings, except they did today. They folded their tent because they had to, because their position was untenable.
I listen
to you, Mr Robb.
Yep. Carry on.
The fact is that they might have some shred of credibility had the same people not been a part of an affair just over a year ago, which helped to bring down Malcolm Turnbull, of sitting down with Godwin Gretsch. I mean, it beggars belief, this sort of purity about leaks, given the meetings that were taking place in Lucy Turnbull's office here in Sydney with senior members of the Coalition. But the fact is that we are in a position to move forward in terms of government. We have an agenda. We're not frightened of our costings. We've put them all into Treasury. Every one of our commitments adds up. It's pretty clear from the opposition. Just in my portfolio alone, they've promised $750 million from the for the Toowoomba bypass. That's $1 billion black hole. The Princes Highway West, another $250 million black hole. The Calliope Crossroads in Queensland, another $50 million black hole. Right around the country, they made promises adding up to, in my portfolio alone, over $2 billion, where they can't say where the money's coming from. Here in Sydney, they made a promise of the F6, a study, but what they did, it only appears on Scott Morrison's website, not on the Liberal Party website, wasn't issued to the mainstream media, to the ABC or Sydney Morning Herald, a localised commitment with no idea of where the money's coming from. It's no wonder that they didn't want their promises costed.
Well, let me ask you, Labor is on the cusp of losing power after one term in office. We heard Mr Robb's assessment a couple of answers back. Why did the voters turn on you?
Well, obviously there were a range of issues, Lee, and we have to listen to the voters.
Well, and what were they?
Well, it's a range of issues. They think that we could have done better on some issues, including climate change, certainly, and the concern that was there with regard to the emissions trading scheme, and the fact that it wasn't carried was one of the issues that was raised with me. I mean, clearly, one of the things that we have to deal with is the way that we didn't explain the fact that we actually tried to get the emissions trading scheme through, and yet a number of people, for example, in my electorate, voted Green because we hadn't implemented the ETS, even though it was the Greens and the coalition that knocked it off.
Did Labor run a bad campaign?
I think certainly what we'll do, Lee, and it's appropriate that it be done at the right time. And we always, after elections, have reviews. We examine what we could do better, what worked, what didn't, and there's a time for that. The time for what is right now is to actually look at the fact that ballots are still being counted, see what the determination is, and set about the negotiations regarding forming a government.
All right. Andrew Robb, Tony Abbott said this week that there was room...
Thanks for the opportunity, yes.
I think you've had plenty of opportunity in this interview so far, and I'm giving you some further opportunity now. Tony Abbott said this week that there was room for a kinder, gentler kind of politics. We've heard that, of course, before, and things haven't changed. Should things change after this election result, and will they?
Lee, firstly, I deserve the right to respond to that litany of nonsense, to be honest. If you talk about embarrassment, you know, what Anthony has just gone through, fact of the matter is this Labor government received a thumping swing against them. This is the first government since 1940, in its first term, that has in fact lost its majority. The first government since 1940. They have received, you know, a massive loss in terms of confidence of people in this government. Anthony talks about, you know, their record in regional Australia. Regional Australia revolted against this government. You go all the way down the Queensland coast, it's wall-to-wall coalition seats. All around the country they were given a thrashing because they have failed monumentally to run this country. They're the waste and the mismanagement and the division, the payback, the uncertainty, the instability. That's what people responded to. And, you know, Tony Abbott has, in many respects, performed very heroically in this campaign. We are the party, the only party with the competence and the stability that can give Australia some prospect of cleaning up the economic mess that's been created. And to sit there and ignore the messages that they've received, you know, I think shows very clearly...
We actually saw Australia through the global financial crisis, Andrew. We actually saw Australia through the greatest economic crisis the globe has seen since the 1930s. It had nothing to do with the economic stimulus plan, according to you.
I'll let you have some free time there, Anthony, but
Mr. Robb,
the fact is that this economy was the best in the world when that crisis hit, and because of the prudent and effective management by the Howard Costello government.
Gentlemen, we're out of time. Thank you very much for coming in at the end of a busy week. I know everyone's tired. Anthony Albanese, Andrew Robb, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Lee. Thank you.